Hey, back to back Ultra Guy here, and where's my guest? Oh, this week's guest is me. So, buckle up or disconnect if you don't want to listen to me. Either way, I thought it might be fun just to come on here and interview myself like I interview everybody else. Um, so, you be the judge. Let me know. So, this week's guest is me. So, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Christian Barratt. I grew up in the Arizona area, specifically Phoenix and Utah for a bit, and moved back to the Arizona city of Mesa when I was about 12 years old. I didn't have any interest in running, into sports, into anything. I was the typical motorcycle punk rock kind of kid, just interested in having a good time. Um, I really started running and found running when I was probably, 2007, 2006. My dad is a thru hiker, so I've always enjoyed hiking and going out with him in the desert as he's training for things. Around 2007, 2008, I started to run. A family friend actually passed away on a track. He's just a dad out, staying healthy. And I don't know what it was, but I was like, you know what? I kind of maybe to honor him, or I really liked him and looked up to him. He's a fantastic person. I don't know what it was, but I just started to run, and nothing serious. 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. We have a canal system in Arizona, and so I started to run along the canal system. And after about that time, I moved to Oklahoma, and my wife and I were there, and no running, no training. I'd walk the dog. That's about it. And I would say around the time I was leaving Oklahoma, I had this bug to join the police in Arizona. I had some friends that were police officers, and there wasn't any openings, but it seemed like a really good career. Looking back, I'm kind of glad I didn't get in for a few reasons, but I really respect those friends of mine and thought that was going to be an option. So I started to run to practice for the PT test. So I started to run again. Came back to Arizona from Oklahoma. Now I have 2 kids. We're in Arizona now. I'm living with my parents, like the quintessential start over thing. And I started running a lot more because of training for the PT test. Now, mind you, this is 2010, 8, 9-ish. And I'm in Arizona running for that. Don't get into the police. And so, do I stop running? Well, at that same time, a friend of mine was like, hey, have you ever heard of Spartan races and Tough Mudder? And I said, no. And he started telling me a little bit about it. Take that back. I had heard of Spartan, but I'd never heard of Tough Mudder. So I actually signed up for a Spartan sprint, and I did that. I don't remember when, but looking back on those pictures, I was so young. It was such a good time. And I really loved Spartan racing. And so I realized, like, wow, this is a lot of fun. And the energy was great. It was kind of like the ultra community. Everyone was so friendly. It was so fun. And so I was like, hey, this is a lot of fun. I'm gonna continue to do this. And that was only 3 miles. Now, if I remember right, and someone's going to correct me, and please do, if I remember right, the Tough Mudder was like 10 miles, 8 or 10 miles. I don't remember, but it was longer than I'd ever run. And so I'm practicing and practicing and practicing. And the friend of mine who invited me, he's was a Marine, and then his brother was in the Army, and they had this other guy from the military there, and they're all runners. And so I was like fish out of water type thing. So we show up. Oh, funny story, but side note. The night before we did the Tough Mudder together, we're friends. My wife and his wife get along, and so we all went out to dinner. And I had this big carb up meal and it was great, and we all were joking and laughing, and we're gonna have so much fun tomorrow. And I got food poisoning. I was up almost all night with food poisoning. I'll spare you the details, but let your imagination go wild. And I was super sick, throwing up, the whole 9 yards, right? Anyway, so I showed up the next morning like white. My wife's like, "Are you sure you're gonna do this?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess. Here we go." So I show up with them and just get after it. We started to go, and it was so much fun. And at that time, Tough Mudder was less about a team. I think right now it's more about team stuff. And anyway, so I did the Tough Mudder, and I was so slow. But I found a pace that I could just keep going. And they were way ahead of me, and whatever. I didn't care. I just was on my own, and I was kept going. And they had this like half pipe wall, and I got so stuck, and people were helping me up. It was like really camaraderie, and I just really liked it. So after that, I realized like I really enjoyed this OCR type thing, and I just didn't have the money to like get super into it and dump a bunch of money into gear and everything else. And so I ran a little bit here and there, but nothing serious. And I found CrossFit. Super loved CrossFit. CrossFit was great. Community camaraderie. You can see the theme here with my life. Super great. Enjoyed CrossFit. I met some lifelong friends there that I still am in touch with. If you're listening, you know who you are. You're awesome. Still think met some of the greatest people there. I also saw some pretty wild stuff there. This is not a CrossFit podcast, so I won't go into those details. But saw some wild stuff. But that lasted so long, and about 2012, I think it was, 13, I done with CrossFit, whole thing. Not only done because finances got real expensive, and I was like doing web design trading, and they sold the business, and the new guys were not as interested in it. It's fine. It was a great time. So I started to work at this company that my friend got me hired at, and it was like commute, 9 to 5, not much time for training at all. I tried to have like a little CrossFit gym in my garage, super small garage. I'm just making excuses. At the end of the day, I really let myself go, and I was the heaviest I ever have been. I vaguely remember, I didn't write it down, but I vaguely remember something about 205. And if you've ever seen me in person, 205 would be a lot of weight. I am not the tallest person. I don't know where they were handing out height, but I wasn't in that line. So I was pretty heavy. And you know what? I might actually attach a picture for reference, because it really does speak to, changing your life and all that in some of these shorts or whatever, or as I share this episode, I'll post that. Anyway, and it was the weirdest thing. I was just kind of in this big slump. I was making good money at this job, but I wasn't happy. My wife and I had moved out of this teeny little house into a bigger house, and my wife had another baby, and so life was going great. And we actually moved out of this bigger rental house, and we purchased this home, and life was great on all fronts, except for I just wasn't happy with myself. I went to a doctor and got my testosterone checked and realized I was like 99. I'll have to go back and look at the email. It was below 100. Let's just put it that way. And it was rough, man. It was a rough time. And started to get treated by that doctor for it, and started to feel a little bit better. Weight started coming off a little bit with just some of the small amount of exercise I was doing. But around that same time, a friend of mine, out of the blue, I don't even know why we were texting, but out of the blue, he was like, "I'm doing a half Ironman." And I knew enough about Ironman to know I didn't know anything about it, other than when people crossed the finish line, it looked like they were destroyed. And I was like, I want that. So I said, cool. And I started to kind of get Ironman curious and look like what it takes to do an Ironman, what it takes to, from the financial side and training wise. And so I purchased a consignment bike at this little bike store in Mesa, Arizona, right by where I live. And I had no idea what I was doing. I've never swam. Coach Aaron, you'll appreciate this. I had never swam laps. I grew up in pools and in lakes, obviously Arizona, tons of pools, but I never swam for distance or anything. And I just remember that didn't even matter. It didn't matter that I didn't know how to swim. It didn't matter I didn't know how to cycle. Because, by the way, if you've ever cycled a bike, done any road biking, it is not like beach cruiser pedaling. It is like there's a special spin and, but again, this isn't a cycling episode. So, but I started to learn all these things and realized I was so out of shape, so out of shape. And anyway, so I started training for that. And I remember getting in the pool and not being able to swim the whole length of the pool. And I remember being so frustrated. I thought, how do people do this? And there was this gal, an older lady. She's probably in her 60s, and she had the most beautiful swimming stroke. And I remember just watching her, and I was like, first of all, I'm not being creepy, lady. I was watching you for your stroke, but I remember thinking, oh, that's what she's doing. She's breathing. It's like walking. She's not holding her breath. This is how stupid I was. I didn't understand the stroke and breathing and all that stuff. And once I figured out the breathing, I really enjoyed swimming. I started to really enjoy swimming. It became one of my favorite parts of training. I also enjoyed road biking as well. So training, signed up for the half Ironman here in Arizona. Side note, I don't think it exists anymore in Arizona. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, and it was a blast, but I just finished and I was like, I thought I was going to be wrecked. Now, to be fair, I just completed it. I wasn't like going for a time or anything like that. And I know all you half and full Ironman people that would ever hear this go, you didn't push hard enough, and I didn't. But I was expecting this like devastating finish, like I was just going to collapse. And I thought I could do a full. And so I was kind of quiet about it. And I'm still kind of a bigger person at this point. And I remember telling some friends one night, I just blurted out that I was going to do a full Ironman. And no one was rude about it. But it wasn't like, oh yeah, you could do that. They all were like, well, have you, 2 miles is far to swim kind of thing. And I thought, no, I'm going to do it. And family's growing, kind of strapped for money. And I remember around that same time, my boss put us in a meeting. We had these, Monday meetings or whatever. And he was like, oh, by the way, we're trying to show our charitable side of the company. So if you guys do any type of like events or like church stuff or community group stuff, we'd love to be involved. And so I approached him after. I said, hey, I've always wanted to do a full Ironman. Would you sponsor me for that? He's like, absolutely. I was like, cool. So now the big cost, right, is going to be taken care of by my company, which was fantastic. So I'm training for the full Ironman, and I realized I needed a coach. And that coach, I found a coach and hired him, and he was fantastic. Christian Barratt. I don't know if he still does his podcast, but fantastic coach. I really enjoyed him. And having him really helped me get ready for this full Ironman. So I do this full Ironman. I don't remember what year it was. I think it was 13. No, it was later than that. 19, 18, 17. I think 17. Let's go with that. I'll have to check the medal. So I do that. No, the half was in 17. The full was in 18, I think. Anyway, so I do that, and that one destroyed me. I gave it way too much effort on the bike, and when it came to the run, my leg was locking up, kind of freezing up. It was a weird experience. I've never had that, and I've never had that since. Anyway, and I realized something about the Ironman community, though, and I'm not knocking Ironman community. I'm just saying there's a difference between that and the ultra community. I remember going along and just saying, hey, I need some ibuprofen in my mind. Like, I need ibuprofen. And so I kept asking other contestants, do you have any ibuprofen? Um, and there's no. So I got to an aid station and asked for my ibuprofen. They said no, they don't have any. They can't hand it out, etc. It's fine. So I'm kind of like limping along, and it's pretty bad. So I'm limping along, and I got to this next aid station, and I asked, and they said no. But then one of the volunteers pulled me aside as I was kind of walking away, and he says, "Here, take this." And he handed me, I think, 5 or 6. He's like, "Use them as you need." And I took them all. Stupid, but I'm not saying do that. That's not medical advice, but I did. And I was able to run. And so I started to run again and completed it. It was such an amazing feeling. It was so amazing. I remember feeling so accomplished and feeling so good about myself. Anyway. And so I thought that was awesome. And around this same time, a close friend of mine and I, we used to hang out once in a blue moon, and we were hanging out, and so this was before the Ironman finished. So going back just a bit, where I found ultra was I knew that there was a thing called ultramarathon, but I didn't know anything about it. So I thought one night we were watching YouTube, and we watched, I think it's Timothy Olson's Ouray video, and we watched that 100-miler, and I was in my mind. It was the same experience I had when my friend told me about the Ironman. I was like, I'm going to do that. I want to do that. And so I told him about it, and he was like, well, let's finish the Ironman kind of thing. And we made some tentative plans to do this race that Aravaipa used to do called the Whiskey Man. We made some tentative plans to do that after the Ironman. And so I remember finishing the Ironman, and it was this weird space where I was like, I was into the Ironman space enough to know like that was not my personality, but I was like, that was my training style. So now I'm going straight from that into like, I want to train for this Whiskey Man, which Whiskey Man used to be, you would do the Whiskey Basin. At the time it was 88K, I believe. Now it's 91K. You would do that up in Prescott, Arizona one weekend. And then the next weekend you would do the Whiskey Off-Road Mountain Bike Race. It's a 50-mile mountain bike race. And then the next weekend you would do the Whiskey Row Marathon. And to me that was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is going to be wild. And again, that buddy that we had tentatively made plans, he signed up too, and it was so much fun. And the training for that was actually really good. I didn't run enough because I'm still trying to train for the mountain bike thing, And my first ultra was that 88K, and it was so eye-opening. My brother was pacing me, and I don't remember, and he could keep me honest, but it was like the last 10. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea about fueling. I had no idea about hydration. I had no idea about anything. I was just like drinking pickle juice, because in my mind I was like, it's hot, I gotta take in salt. So I was over salting. I was taking salt pills, drinking pickle juice, and eating pickles at the aid station. You do the math, like over salted. And I remember my right leg, it didn't freeze up like the Ironman, but it blew up and tightened up. It was a different feeling. It was like swollen, like elephantitis swollen, my right leg. And I like couldn't really run. I could do this weird like limp trot thing. And I remember my brother being so patient with me as we finished that race. And I just thought, even with all that ridiculousness at the 10-mile mark, I just thought this was so awesome. Like, this was awesome. So we did the Whiskey Off-Road the next weekend. My wife's a saint. She's like, yeah, go ahead. We're, do all these crazy things. We have this young family. So thank you, dear. You're awesome. And I did the the off-road mountain bike race, and that was a blast. It was so much fun. And side note, a cool thing about this Whiskey Man was Jamil Curry, who is the owner of Aravaipa, he had never done the Whiskey Man, and so this was the year he decided to do it. So obviously we see a lot of these same people at these 3 different races, and it was fun to spend some time with him and also the other contestants. It was so much fun. I'm not saying we're best friends. We are not. Probably doesn't know who I am. But it was fun to spend some time with these people who were super experienced and to kind of glean some insight from. Anyway, So did the Whiskey off-road, and then we did the Whiskey Row Marathon the next weekend, and it was so much fun. And let me tell you, if you ever want to do a hard marathon, you sign yourself up for the Whiskey Row Marathon. The first half marathon is all the way up, and the rest is half all the way down. It's so fun. It's, very little road. You're on the trail, fire roads most of the time. And it was so much fun. And I remember completing that and thinking, wow, that was awesome. And shortly after that, I just signed up for the Mogollon Monster 100K. It doesn't, 105K. It doesn't exist anymore. But at the time, it was the 105K and the 100 miler. So I signed up for the 105K. Natural progression, right? I did 88K, which was 50 something miles. So 100K's next, right? And I trained for that. No idea what I was doing. Still have no idea what I was doing at the time. I was no coaching, nothing. And it was more for financial reasons. No coach, not pride or anything. Because I have no idea what I was doing. I'd admit to people I have no idea what I'm doing. So training for that, trying to do more elevation because there's a ton of climbing. And that race was epic. I got what I was looking for at the Ironman, where it was just a devastation. It was just wrecked me. And I remember at one point in the race, at that time of the year, it's the monsoon season in Arizona, so crazy weather. Every year it's crazy. It's either crazy hot or, hail, snow type stuff, crazy cold wind. So I remember I was up there and I was doing this climb, and I'm not a lightning and thunder expert. I will just tell you that. But all I remember is a flash of light so bright that it enveloped all of my vision. All I could see was a flash of light. Went off, and then immediately, and I say immediately, it was immediately after that flash of light, there was thunder. And I remember thinking, did I almost get struck by lightning? It was everything I wanted. It was just craziness and carnage. And I got to that first big aid station where there was a lot of 100 milers there. And I remember seeing them, and it was like this, dying. And one guy was like in the medic tent groaning. And I was like, this is it. This is what I was expecting. Anyway, so finished that, and I'll post a picture of my finish line photo from the 105K, and you will realize that I was undertrained, underestimated, no idea what I was doing. The look on my face says it all. It was awesome. And so after that, obviously, what's the next one? 100 miler. So I thought, okay, I want to do an easy 100. And for everyone listening, I just did air quotes around easy because there's no easy hundreds. What I meant by that was not a mountain 100. I wanted something more flat. So in the Arizona area, Aravaipa puts on a race called the Coldwater Rumble. Side note, Javelina's great, but if you want a really good 100 miler with about the same elevation-ish around, that's a great one. So I training, and I go do the Coldwater Rumble 100 miler, and it's a washing machine style. So it's a looped course, and you leave clockwise, and then the next time you go through the aid station, finishing your loop, you go counter, and so on and so forth. So I'm doing that, and I meet somebody. I had some pacers set up, and he had to bail, so I am looking for a new pacer, and I go on Aravaipa and cut to finding a super close ultra friend I've had for many years. We've paced and crewed each other for many years. It's fantastic. Josh Locke. Love you, brother. Anyway, so I'm getting all these tangents. So we do the race, and I realized I had no idea what I was doing. And you think you've done a few races and you think, oh, I know what I'm doing. You have no idea. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I think I probably power hiked 40 miles, 30 maybe. So Josh was great. And he'd be like, hey, pick it up a little bit. So I finished that, and I felt so accomplished. I felt more accomplished after that than I did at the Ironman. I'm not comparing. I'm just saying personally, I felt so accomplished. So I did that race, and I remember thinking, what's next? What's going on? Had some family stuff going on at the time that was more important. So I was focusing on that too. And I just remember thinking, this isn't, I'm not done. And I believe it was around after Coldwater, Aravaipa announced Cocodona. And I remember hearing about Cocodona and thinking, I'm going to do that. Now, mind you, I just had the worst 100 of my life. Not the worst, but it wasn't great. It wasn't some stellar, showing of athletic fortitude. So I thought, oh, well, I'm going to do that. And the same buddy who paced me, we were kind of chummy now, and so he was texting me, did you see this race? I said, yeah. He says, I'm signing up for it. I was like, okay, well, then that means I don't have any crew. So, and financially, I wasn't prepared to do it at the time. I wasn't trained for it, the whole thing. So I said, cool. Well, can I be involved? Yeah, of course. So, I don't remember what year. That was 2021, I think it was when it opened. Yeah, 2021. And so I crewed and paced him at that. And I was still training a little bit on the side, nothing serious. And crewed and paced him that year. And then the next year he did it again. And I crewed and paced him at it too again. And I think, quick side note about crewing and pacing. If you want to jump up in distance, or you're kind of tentative, you're kind of timid around these multi-day events or whatever, get involved. Get involved in an aid station. Get involved crewing pacing. It really gives you an idea of what really happens and what's really going on. So, crewed and paced him 2022. 2021, 2022, he did fantastic. So, it was a lot of fun pacing and crewing him. And 2022, I realized that was my year to do Cocodona the next year, 2023. So I signed up for Cocodona. And, like any good back of the pack athlete, I got to prepare for Cocodona. So what am I going to do? Well, let's sign up for the Mogollon Monster Hunter, because there's a lot of climbing in there. There's your genius planning at work. That's all the planning that went into it. So I said, okay, cool, let's do that. So I signed up for that 100 miler. And it just rocked me. It was tough. It was really, really tough. There was some crazy weather. I was hiding in a car. I saw poor people hiding under like trees for cover. It was hail. It looked like snow everywhere. Super cold wind. It was just a wild ride. And I was chasing cutoffs, but we did it. One of my pacer buddies, guy we actually did the Whiskey Man with, he was there to help me. He's fantastic. And we got it done. And my dad paced me as well, coming into from the last aid station into Pine. It was such a special moment. There had been some changes in my family, and so it was so sweet to have everybody there. Anyway, super special moment, and one that I'll never forget. So much fun. Mogollon Monster 100 miler. Go do it if you want to do cool mountain 100. Go get after it. It is a great race. There's my free unsolicited plug. I don't get paid, so there's my free plug. Mogollon Monster 100 miler. Go do it. So Cocodona, just training. I have no idea what I'm doing. And mind you, now remember, I've only ever seen my buddy do it. And my buddy placed 4th the first year, and I remember he placed the second year, but it was really good. So I was basing all of my this is how you do Cocodona off of what I saw from him. Did no research. Full disclosure, I did no research on sleep training. I did no research on anything. I was basing it all off of my experience with 100 milers and what I had seen him do at Cocodona. Stupid. Don't do that. Anyway, so I'm training, and I remember it was like a second job. It was like a part-time job. Training and logistics and getting all the stuff ordered and bags and all the gear set aside. I remember I had this really special moment. I had a friend who I met years and years ago doing a service mission back east in West Virginia. And his name is Bryce. And I remember we hooked back up on Instagram years later. And mind you, I haven't seen him in 20 years. And I saw that he was doing the trail running. So I reached out to him and I said, hey, I see you're into trail running. How would you like to crew me at Cocodona? I know we haven't seen each other in 100,000 years, but want to crew me at Cocodona? And he said, heck yeah, I do. And I said, awesome. And he goes, oh, I also have access to this like van, like a Sprinter van. I was like, oh, awesome. And it was just all fell together. It was so special. It was so cool to see, to spend time with him so many years later. Anyway, so hook up with him, start chatting with him. He's like, co-crew chief extraordinaire. My dad's involved as well. He takes his whole week off of work and he comes down. And I was as prepared as I could have been, not having a coach, not having any idea what I was doing. So within that perspective, I was as prepared as I could have been. I wasn't prepared enough, but inside that microcosm, I was prepared, I thought. So Bryce drives the van down. It's go time. Getting the van situated. It's got a bed in it. I was so spoiled. Another friend of mine wanted to get involved, and he was so kind with his time. And he said, I said, I don't need any pacers or crew really, but he's like, well, can I cook? I'd love to just come hang out and experience it and cook. So I've got to cook for the crew, and it was outrageous. It was so special to see all these people come together and experience it with me. It was something I'll never forget. Anyway, so go time. I get to the start line of Cocodona, and it was like I could see Tom Cruise on the street, and I would be like, oh, hey, that's Tom Cruise. But I'm like hanging out at the Cocodona start line, and I'm seeing all the big players. Everyone's there. It was so awesome. And there's this little diner by the start line, and I was in there eating with my dad, and there's Jose Sosa. Shout out to Jose Sosa. I'll tag you in this. Super fantastic ultra athlete. 5-time Cocodona guy. I think 4 or 5-time Cocodona. Can't remember. He's an animal. I saw him and so I'm like starstruck. Hey, what's going on? Nice to meet you. So I was eating it up. It was so fun. It was so much fun to see everybody. Obviously, I had a huge support crew there. And it was just so special. I remember laying in bed, my alarm's going off in the van. I'm laying in bed in this van at the start line of Cocodona, and I had this thought. I was like, you don't have to do this. And I thought, oh, yes, I do. I have all these people here. I've got to do this. And I just share that with you to say, like, I'm no pro. I'm no influencer. I'm just a guy with kids and a job. Well, actually, I'm laid off right now, so no job. So side note, if anyone's looking for Salesforce positions, I'm your guy. Give me a call. But I'm just a guy, right? I'm not something special. I'm not this incredible athlete. But I remember laying there going, I don't want to do this. Like, this is scary. And I just said, get up. And I got up. And I remember getting up. And my buddy goes, are you ready? And I said, no. I said 10 minutes ago I was just thinking about not doing it. And he goes, oh, you're doing it. Or something like that. And I thought, yeah. Anyway, filling up the water, getting everything ready, getting my little GPS GPS tracker on. And once I got out of the van and was getting things ready, I was super excited. Anyway, so Cocodona, morning of Cocodona, and I seeing all these people at the start line. And I remember Cameron Haynes talking about this. He was talking about, like, what other sport can you line up with these pros? Like, if I went to, like, how could I go play NBA basketball? I can't. I'm super short. We already covered that. Football. How could I go to the Arizona Cardinals and just line up with those guys? It's not possible. WNBA. No one's having me. No one's going to take me. But in the ultramarathon world, that's how special it is. You get to line up with these pros, these amazing athletes, literally amazing athletes who are so far out of my depth. They're just beyond what I could do. I get to stand at the same start line with them. It was so awesome. So I'm standing there, and I had my headlamp upside down. If you look at pictures, I'll post all these pictures so you guys can see it. My headlamp's upside down in one of the pictures, if I remember right. Anyway, so super nervous. Let's be honest. I was nervous, excited but nervous. And the gun goes off, and oh jeez, flip my head around, get going, and I remember it was just so crowded. It was so crowded because it's single track, and there's however many hundreds of people trying to go on this single track, and going along. I'm like now running with these people I'm looking up to. I caught up with Jose Sosa. I caught up with the Joker. When I say caught up with, I wasn't beating them, but you're going along in a pack with these guys. It was so awesome. It was so awesome. And I remember at one point, I had to go to the bathroom, and we're all in this single file line. And I've got this nice gal behind me and a couple in front of me, and I look behind her, and there's a couple gals back there. I was like, my grandmother would kill me if I just stopped and went to the bathroom right here. And it's not the right thing to do. So I'll just kind of wait. I kind of got off the side of the trail and let people go and waited for a little bit of a space. And as I noticed there was a space, the drones flying around. I was like, crap, I can't do this. So I just started going. Found a spot, discreetly used the restroom. Nobody charged me with anything. Discreetly used the restroom. And kept going. And it was just so exciting. It was so much fun. And I met these two guys from Idaho. And the reason I bring this up is because it plays into the story in a minute. I met these two guys from Idaho, and they were so jazzed, just like I was, and we were just jazzed, and we're going, and we're loving it. It's just awesome. Going. And so we start to break off, and as you start to kind of climb into the Bradshaws and get further along after that first water stop, the conga line breaks up, right? And so I remember I started going along with this gal. Forgive me, I don't remember what her name was or where she's from, but she had done the training run before, so maybe she's from the valley, I don't know. Anyway, and I remember after the first water stop, so there's the first aid station, you have to leave with a certain amount, and then there's a small water fill-up station, and then from that point to the 1 liter water fill-up at the river, there's no water. Well, no water you can get. But they had said that there was water because of all the rain. That year we had quite a bit of rain. So I remember I was going with this gal, and I said, hey, you said you did the training run, right? She said, yeah. I said, where's the water? She's like, oh, it's just it's up the way a bit. When we were doing the training run, it was just like flowing. I was like, cool. And it wasn't mandatory, but they had encouraged us to carry a light little water filtration system. So we all had, her and I had one, a water filtration system. And going. A couple miles go by, I said, hey, was it pretty close? Like, I'm out of water. And she's like, I think we passed it. It's like, ooh. We're like 6 miles to water. No water. I laugh now, but it wasn't funny at the time. So I said to her, are you opposed to filtering some of this stagnant, barely moving water? She's like, I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm not saying you do it, but I'm going to do it. So we're going along. It wasn't flowing. It was like moving a little bit. And so I was like, that one looks like it's moving the fastest. Let's go over there. So I'm not saying drink pond water. I'm not telling you to do it. I didn't get affected. So the water filtration system worked, but I remember doing the catch thing, and then you put the thing on and you squeeze it through, the whole deal. And her and I are doing this, and we're actually getting quite a bit of water. And this other little group comes up and is like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm out of water. And she goes, I'm out of water. And they're like, you're going to get sick. And I was like, I looked at him and I was like dad moment. I was like, I would rather get giardia than be knocked out of the race because of dehydration on the first day within the first 30 miles. And, well, you do what you want to do. And they went off. And I was like, you do you, bro. You do you. Maybe they had more water than we did. I don't know. So we fill up, we're going, and even the little bit we filled up, we still ran out. As you drop down into the river, I was just running out right as I was dropping down to the river part before you really start climbing in the Bradshaws. One of the race directors, Noah, was down there with some water, and he was so kind and gave us water. But there was a really good running river there. Like the people who live by the Mississippi would laugh. It was a good moving stream. So we're all filtering. We full fill up again, and you just climb up the Bradshaws. You get to the first aid station, the Bradshaw aid station, I think it's called. I can't remember. And remember the guys from Idaho? Well, they were sitting there at the aid station, and I was like, "What's up, guys?" And I was all jazzed because I just eaten. I've got filtered water, good water from the aid station. And they were like, "Oh man, my buddy's not doing too good." And then his buddy talked, and he goes, "Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't feel very good." Like he talked like that, and I was like, "What the heck happened?" He said, "I don't know, man. I lost my voice." And I was like, "What is happening?" It's just immediate carnage. Like he just loses his voice. I'm like, "What is going on?" So we hung out there for a second, minute or two, and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be going. Like, let's go together to Crown King." And so he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And the guy's like, "Yeah, I think I'm ready." And we start running down to Crown King. It was like the first time you could run in the whole course, unless Courtney and Rachel are probably running that whole Bradshaw section, not me. Anyway, so we're running down to Crown King, and I just remember going, "Yeah, this is so great." And one of the guys like took his headphones out of his phone, and so we're listening to music, and we're just all jazzed up going down to the Crown King. And I just remember hearing, "Ugh," and the guy, I laugh. God bless him. I'm not making fun of him. It was just funny because it was like this high moment, and then I turn around and he's just throwing up violently. I was like, "Oh, this guy's not doing good." So I was like, you good? Do you need anything?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm just going to walk it in." So him and the two Idaho guys walked it into Crown King, and I just started running down the hill, seeing my crew, and it was great. Crown King is great. Fantastic little city in Arizona. Great aid station there. Crew as well. So I took crew, and I'm going. I remember my friend's done Cocodona twice. So I remember asking him, "What's your biggest advice?" And he's giving me advice, and he goes, "Oh, by the way, don't forget your cold weather gear at Crown King. You'll be freezing going up to Camp Kippa." Got it. What did I forget? My cold weather gear going out of Crown King. So I'm going along, and I see this guy up in the distance, and I was like, "Hey, are you good?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm just getting my light out." Come to find out, it's Coach Lance. He's been on the podcast twice. So we start going together, and we're about the same age-ish, have some kids, and so we've got a lot in common. We're talking, and great dude, fantastic guy. Side note, if you're looking for a coach, I've had so many great coaches on. Coach Lance is fantastic. Coach Aaron, Steve. I'll just go back in the episodes. I've had a ton of coaches on. And Lance knows what he's doing. He is a great multi-day coach. Anyway, so we're going along, and it starts to get so cold, and I was like, "Hey, bro, I'm freezing." And he's like, "Where's your gloves?" I was like, "I forgot my cold weather gear." So I'm like wearing a hat, no like beanie. Excuse me. And so, divine intervention, call it whatever you want. I literally, after I said that, I looked down, and there's this one glove in the ground, like in the dirt. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's a glove." It's like XX large, way too big for my hand. So I like pat the dirt out of it, and I put it on one hand. He goes, "Oh, let me give you a sock for your other hand." So I'm going into Arasta Creek with a sock and a dirty XX large glove on it. And I get in there, and it was so cold. I remember being so cold. And we did Arasta Creek. We climbed to Camp Kippa. Side note, if you're doing Cocodona, do not underestimate the climb to Camp Kippa, because you've already exerted so much from the Bradshaws going up into Crown King. Camp Kippa climb is no joke. Do not underestimate it. Don't wear your road shoes. Don't take food. Take plenty of food. Take plenty of water. That climate coming to from Arasta Creek up into Camp Kippa is no joke. and Lance and I are going together. We're doing it. We hit the Camp Kippa aid station. One of our fellow members of the State 48 runners here, Hillary's there. Shout out to Hillary. And she's like, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" So I'm cutting it up with her. I'm like trying to lay on the picnic bench and like stretch my hip flexors. It probably looked like I was doing this weird like geriatric, stretching session. I don't know. But I was wiped out. And I remember I had to go to the bathroom and I said, "Hey, Hillary, where's the bathroom?" Kind of like being discreet. She's like, "Oh, it's on the side of the building." So I remember go out to the side of the building, Camp Kippa Ed Station, 2023. It's a bucket. So I'm doing what I need to do in this bucket, sitting down. And it's literally right by the parking lot. And these two gals pull up and park, and they get out right by where I am. And I'm like, "Hi." Because they're like looking at me, and they're like, "Oh, hi." And they're like, "What?" So whoever you are, ladies, I apologize that you didn't need to see that. But the infamous Camp Kippa bucket, I don't know if they still do it or if there's bathrooms, but that's the way it was that year. Anyway, so I took aid there, used the restroom, if you can call it that, and you drop down into Prescott area, and there was an aid station, Friendly Pines, I think it was, there, and I picked up a pacer there, and by that time, Coach Lance had taken off. Get into Prescott, and by the time I got into Prescott, I was just destroyed. Side note, I had seen Jose Sosa at or at Camp Kippa, and I was like, "Hey, man, are you leaving?" He's like, "No, I'm sleeping." And I was like, in my mind, I was like, "Why is he sleeping?" Because I'd only ever seen my buddy do it, and he just never sleeps like that. And so I was like, "Sleep? That's weird." So I remember by the time I got to Camp Kippa, by the time I got to Whiskey Row, I was like, I was so wiped out. Delirious, wiped out. Had this terrible blister under like my foot pad right by my toes. And I was just like, is this how it's going to be the rest of the race? Well, no, idiot, you have to sleep. So if you're doing Cocodona and you haven't thought about your sleep plan, think about your sleep plan, because don't be like me. It was the worst. So I pick up my pacer. We go through Whiskey Row. I lay down for a little bit. I didn't sleep. I just laid down and kind of elevated my feet. My feet were like throbbing. And Whiskey Row's great. Great energy, Whiskey Row. And so go through Whiskey Row. And I get to the Dells, the granite Dells. And I remember I stepped on this rock. It was like a pointy rock right on the blister of my foot pad. And if you look at your toes, right, like the webbing between your toes, there was nowhere for that deep blister to go except for the webbing in between my big toe and my next toe. And it just squirted out. My shoe was all wet, and I was like, oh, it felt so good. But it was also painful. But it felt so good to finally have that thing gone. So I started hallucinating right after the Dells, because I was telling my buddy, I was like, "Dude, do you see those guys up there?" He's like, "That's a fence post." So I was just in it. I get to the next aid station before Fain Ranch. I don't remember what it's called. And I get there, and I was so tired. I hadn't slept yet, right? And so I was so tired, and I was eating all this fruit. In my mind, I kept like thinking I had to eat all this fruit. I don't know why, because it was hot. I just thought it was like a refreshing way to get some calories and not overload on gels. It's so stupid. Like you think of the dumbest things. And so I remember I picked up my next pacer, Josh Fowler. Shout out to Josh Fowler. He's a fantastic dude, great pacer. Anyway, I pick him up, and I was like, "Dude, I keep going to the bathroom." He's like, "Okay. What are you drinking? Like, what are you eating?" I was like, "I'm eating a ton of fruit." He goes, "Well, duh, you idiot. Stop eating fruit." So I stopped eating fruit, and that fixed it. Thank you, Josh. Get to Fain Ranch. Satisfy aid station, right? The couches. I didn't even enjoy the couches. I took my spaghetti, if I had pasta or whatever it was. I sat in the van because it was getting windy and cold. I ate that, and then from Fain Ranch to Mingus, you go through this cow pasture. And I remember that was the first time I felt frustrated. I was like, "Oh, these stupid holes! There's holes everywhere." And it's just like no flags, and like we're wandering around and staring at there's flags, but they're hard to see. I'm staring at the map, and I was so frustrated. inside though, I never really expressed it. I never really wanted to give my frustration or pain a voice. And I'll talk about that in a second. But we get up to climb up to Mingus, and I said to my crew, I've got to sleep. And they were like, okay. So I lay down, and I could sleep for like 10 minutes. That's it. And I was like, oh, so frustrated. So I lay down to sleep, 10 minutes, pick up another pacer, my buddy Owen. We're cruising down Mingus. And I remember telling Owen, I was like, Owen, I have this weird feeling. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I know I'm eating. I'm eating a ton. It's my superpower in ultra. I can eat a lot. I eat a ton. Like I've eaten a ton. I'm salting perfectly. I've got water. I've got all the things. I'm doing all the things. I was like, well, I just don't know what this feeling is. Like my feet aren't synced up to my brain. He goes, well, you need to sleep? And I was like, oh, duh. I didn't sleep. So if you ever feel like your feet aren't synced up to your brain, then you got a problem. You need to sleep. So I lay down and just knock out instantly. I slept for probably 20 minutes. And then we kept going. Get to Jerome. My cook's there. Thank you, Teddy. Awesome dude. And we're eating like elk tacos or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was like, see, I was so spoiled. That's just, it was not roughing it. It was like the 5-star experience. And I didn't sleep there. And then I pick up another buddy pacer, Matt. Shout out to Matt Lofgren. And we're going down down Jerome. And you go down, like at the time you were going down this like side of this hill. It was like the old dump and there's glass everywhere. And I was like, if I fall, I'm going to get hepatitis or something. And so we safely make it down the glass hill and get into Cottonwood, I think it is, area, and going along. And my next big memory was being at, I don't remember the name of the aid station, but it's before Dead Horse. And I remember they sat me in a chair. I was overheating. They put my feet in a cooler of ice water. And I had this little like construction fan that sucks up water and mists water. And I remember the second my body cooled down, I literally passed out. There's pictures of me just passed out in a chair with my feet in this cooler. And I slept for a bit. And I remember waking up and I was like, I'm good. And so I pick up another pacer, Dave. Dave, shout out to you. If you ever hear this, you're awesome. And I'd never met Dave, by the way, up to this point. So we get to know each other, go to Dead Horse. And I slept at Dead Horse. And at Dead Horse, true story, at Dead Horse I sleep. And as I'm going to sleep, I have this hallucination or like memory-ish thing of it was a carousel, like with, like the up and down animals, you ride a carousel, but there was photos instead of animals. And so the photos are moving like this up and down. There's a ton of these photos. If you're seeing it online, I'm trying to paint the picture for you. But this carousel is moving, and this is all happening in my mind's eye. And there's these pictures of random people. I have never seen these people in my life. Random people on these carousel pictures. And I was like, what the heck? Pass out, go to sleep. Side note, after Cocodona, I was reading a race report from someone else, and they had the exact same hallucination. Kid you not, swear on whatever you want me to swear on. I reached out to him, I was like, bro, that is wild. And so we're kind of Instagramming, messaging back and forth about it. Crazy. Not saying we saw the same pictures, but the same exact thing happened. Wild. I don't know. Sign me up for a case study for some psychedelic thing or something. I don't know. Anyway, so I pick up my buddy Bryce now, crew chief extraordinaire. He takes me to Sedona. At Sedona, I just remember sleeping a little bit, and my buddy Josh, who I'd crewed and paced before, who's an animal, by the way, he was taking me from Sedona to Munns. And I ate a ton at Sedona, and river crossing going up Kasner at the time. We didn't do hangover yet. It was pre-hangover, and you do Kasner, climb up. Crossing the river, climbing up out of there. We do the Schnebly Hill aid station because the other, I don't remember the new one, but it wasn't there. Was it there? It wasn't there. and I can't remember. Correct me if I'm wrong, internet. I can't remember. And Schnebley Hill, eat a ton, get to Munns Park, and my wife and kids are there. Oh, it was so awesome. I've got a great video I'll post when I post this stuff to reference what I'm talking about. And one of my daughters, she's so sweet. Our third daughter, she has Down syndrome, and she loves sports, and she's cheering people on as they come down this little hill. It was so sweet. And we get into the aid station, and I crash a little bit and eat a ton. It was so motivating to see my family. Shout out to my wife, side note. She's like dragging these kids around everywhere. She's a rock star. Anyway, Munns Park to Kelly Canyon was the worst. It was disastrous. Down trees. I'm like climbing over and under trees. Josh Fowler again. Shout out to Josh. He's with me during this time. Going along. And we get to Kelly Canyon, and it was just like, what the heck am I doing? And I was, by that time you're at 200 miles, and I was just like, dude, this is so crazy. And I remember feeling energized, but my body was so worn out. I don't remember sleeping at Kelly Canyon, but I remember going down from Kelly Canyon into Fort Tuthill, and I'm going along, and I said to Josh, this is probably not there, but do you see cabins with lights on and people like moving around the cabins on either sides of this road? He goes, dude, there is nobody out here. I was like, I thought so, but I just see these cabins. It was wild. So we get to Fort Tuthill, and I crashed out at Fort Tuthill. Crashed out. I slept for the longest I'd slept up to that point. Fort Tuthill's great. It was cold. And I remember my brother flew in from, same brother who paced me my first ultra. So he flew in from Oregon. God bless him. He's awesome. Flies in from Oregon, drives all the way up, rents a car, drives all the way up to where I'm at in Fort Tuthill area, and he takes me from Fort Tuthill to Walnut Canyon. And if you ever get the chance to do that section, it is absolutely stunning in the morning, early morning, or the evening. There's this huge open meadow area. God, it's just beautiful. Get to Walnut Canyon, and my feet are so destroyed. Literally, I can't even tell you how destroyed they are. I'll share some pictures. You don't have to pay me for them. Free fit pictures. Anyway, so they parked the van next to this other group. They're parking in a line, just normal stuff. And this gal who we parked by, she sees me getting into my van, and she goes to my crew chief, Dad and Bryce, and is like, hey, your runner looks horrible. And they're like, yeah, his feet are jacked. And so they were like, do you want me to take a look at it? I'm a medic. I volunteer medic at all the destination trail races, I think she said. Or Bigfoot or something. Anyway, they're like, sure. So she comes over, she's like, can I take a look at your feet? I said, please. And they were so bad. I hadn't really looked at them up to this point. And she was an angel. She was a trail angel. She took care of my feet and took care of all the blisters, wrapped them properly, taped them properly, had drainage ports for all the taped ones. She knew what she was doing. Let's just say that. I have no idea what I'm doing. She knew what she was doing. And I remember getting out of the van after she wrapped my feet, and I slept a little bit, and I was going along, and I thought, if she wasn't here, I don't know if I'd been able to finish. So, shout out to Denise, I think her name is. Bryce has her number. She's awesome. Anyway, so I'm going along. Now I pick up my dad as a pacer. He's taking me in. How epic is this? My dad is taking me into the finish. I remember climbing Mount Eldon with my dad in the middle of the night, and it wasn't the middle of the night yet. It was like probably 11ish. So cold, and the wind was just whipping so bad. And my dad's currently in his 70s, and he's like rock star, like hiker guy. So he's just like, come on. And I'm like, oh. And we get to the top of Mount Eldon, and it was just blowing wind. So I'm wearing all my layers. And I remember I was trying to trot. And as I was trotting, like the wind would blow me. So I'd have to take these really dedicated steps with my poles, and the wind wouldn't blow me as bad. And we got to the Fort Tuthill aid station, and Pete's Meats was there. Shout out to Pete's Meats. And barbecue, they're giving beer out to everybody. I don't drink, so I didn't partake in any of that, but it would have been great calories. But everyone's drinking beer and eating barbecue. It was so fun. And I have this, I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm a celebrity. I made the live stream. My cameo on the live stream is the two people on the live stream going, boy, that guy's passed out. Look at him. And I was passed out with my mouth open like that in the chair. And they talked about, they kind of poked fun at me. I mean, it was all in jest, and I just think it was great. It was fun. But who knew? I'm a freaking celebrity on the live stream. So we get done with that. And I remember going down Mount Eldon. It was the first time I experienced vocal frustration. I remember going, and my feet were so bad, going downhill and my toes just hitting the fronts of my shoes. And I remember just shouting out like, ah, and I probably said some inappropriate words, and my dad was like, oh, geez. But it was the first time, luckily it was the end of the race, I vocalized my pain. And it really, the second I vocalized my pain, I gave it a place in the race. It was now with me in the race. But before I was just never gave it a voice. And I'm not telling you to break your leg and pretend like it's not broken. That's not what I'm saying. But I'd not given my pain any voice up to this point. And that last part coming down through Buffalo Park into the finish, my pain had a voice. And it's a real thing. I don't remember the book. I think it's Brave Athlete or something like that. He talks about it. It's like a scientific thing. He's like an exercise scientist guy. Anyway, so be careful giving your pain a voice. Obviously, if you need medical attention, get it. I'm just saying, there's something to that, I think. Anyway, going into Buffalo Park, it just goes on, and then you go through the city, and it goes on, and I finally turned down the street to go down to the alley, and my kids are there, and I crossed the finish line with my kids, and it was so, so special. It was so special. And I just remember thinking how blessed I was, and how amazing my wife and kids were. It's 2:30 in the morning, it was so special. If you're Cocodona curious, do it. Train for it. Be smarter than me, but do it. It is such a special, life-changing experience. I think I'm going to do a second episode for this because I'm at an hour, and I don't think anyone wants to listen to a 2-hour podcast of me going on and on. So I'm going to pick up after Cocodona in my next episode. But I just want to close out by saying, because I asked my guests to give the last word, and I'll close out this episode with saying, don't give your pain a voice. You're stronger than that. Don't give your pain a voice. And you can do hard things. I was completely overweight, 99 testosterone, it's just low quality of life, everything. And yeah, you can do hard things, and just believe in yourself. My friends were never rude, but they were kind of like, are you sure you want to do a full Ironman? Yeah, I'm going to do it. And then find a tribe that they never not believed in me. They're all so supportive, and even to this day are fantastic. But also find some tribes that believe in you. The ultra community is amazing. So don't give your pain a voice, and you can do hard things. You should do hard things. You are so much stronger than you think you are. And doing these things will open up your world to harder and harder things that you can do to prove how strong you really are. So until next time, episode 2. Thanks, everybody.